Welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us. South Africa's economy is not going to perform as expected before. That's according to the World Bank's Global Economic Prospects Report. The report indicates that the country's real GDP growth will expand by 1.3% in 2019 instead of 1.8% as initially predicted. While the GDP outlook has seen a downward revision, this happens in a global context where international trade and investment are moderating. Furthermore, the World Bank expects growth in emerging market and developing economies to lose momentum and is projected to reach 4.2% this year. To help us understand this is Brand South Africa's General Manager for Research, Dr. Petrus de Kock. Dr. de Kock, compliments to you. Thank you very much for making time to speak to us. You know, just when we were expecting the success in the investment conference to come into fruition in this year, now this. What really happened in hindsight?
I think we must look at this in the context of the World Bank's Global Economic Outlook report, where I think there's a lot of concerns that the World Bank itself has about dynamics in the international economy. One of the factors that they mention is, for example, trade war initiatives between the United States and China. You've got Brexit happening that's causing huge uncertainty in developed, advanced economies and markets, and also then the downward revision of the expectation for growth in developing countries as such to 4.2%. So that speaks to global dynamics, and where we are interested in this as Brand South Africa is not just the pure GDP number, but it's to do exactly what your question implies, is to say that I think in the past year, the initiatives taken by government in terms of intervening on the economic front, be it through a job summit, investment summit, or a lot of the work done by the investment envoys of the president, that is all showcasing the efforts being done, and you don't just turn a GDP around in a 6-month period. It's a very long-term commitment. So in a way, as Brand South Africa, we're saying, as South Africans, we need to look after what are we doing in innovation, what are we doing as ourselves to stimulate growth, but I think more importantly, how do we maintain the reputation of the country in the face of downward revisions like this?
So when it comes to projections, are you saying that South Africa has a economic dichotomy of projections, like you are blowing hot and cold? You have optimism on the other hand, but you also have uncertainty on the other.
I think that's the nature of the beast. Unfortunately, that's the nature of economics and politics. That yes, we are optimistic about a whole lot of features. If you look at some of the interventions launched, not only by cabinet but also by the private sector, where there's major commitment to, I think, a 2 billion rand fund for supporting SMMEs and entrepreneurs. You look at the youth employment schemes that are on the table. But I think ultimately the message that we need to take heed of, and actually the message we need to take, is that South Africa operates in a very complicated global economic environment, and that we need to be very innovative to find those spaces where we can expand trade opportunities, attract new investment, but most importantly stimulate internal investment. And that speaks to the confidence that we have as South Africans in ourselves and in our own economy. So I think that's a critical feature of the work that's being done. Also, maybe lastly, if you look at the preparation work for investment conference last year, where the president also announced several interventions at a structural level, and that work continues, where we're looking at what are the blockages to investment in the economy, what's the red tape we need to take out of the way to stimulate growth. And
so as you and I are talking now, there is somebody out there who is sitting with a CV to say, oh, by the way, there are jobs coming. We had the job summit, investment conference. We are dashing the hopes of people if we are saying we can't turn around the GDP in about 6 months. We're killing people's hopes now.
No, look, I think that we must be very realistic when we look at a national economic picture. You know, even if you look at the South African deeper GDP picture, and I think Stats SA would be well positioned to talk to you about this. If you look at the different sectors and what it contributes, one needs to go in there and then say, even in a period of shrinking GDP, you will find certain sectors are expanding. And I think that's the nature of the economic analysis to be done. Yes, if you have a CV, or if you're preparing somebody leaving school now, what qualification do I need to get? Look at the trends in the past decade. Which are the sectors that consistently, sometimes it may take a knock, but then you also look at the ones that consistently show that there's expansion and improvement.
So when we're talking about uncertainty, we're looking at the areas of land reform, provision of electricity, which is one other crucial factor, also the mining charter that needs to be finalized. So how do you restore confidence when you have outstanding issues of uncertainty so that you can be able to present factors that will also talk to the issue of investor confidence.
I think the mining charter actually last year, a lot of progress has been made. We say in our statement, Brand South Africa statement on this, that since the budget speech last year, a lot of work has been done between the resource ministry and the sector on looking into the concerns of the sector, because there was a time where the mining sector basically did not even want to talk to government until the new minister came into place, and a lot of, I think, issues that were bugging the sector was addressed. So mining charter wise, we're not where we need to be yet, but we are making progress on that front. I think in terms of other interventions, there's also the stimulus package that was agreed to by Cabinet in the course of last year, a new framework. I think the last Cabinet meeting of last year established a new framework that looks at all South Africa's international engagements and then asking the question, those international engagements, how do they feed back into us achieving our national objectives?
Just very briefly before you go, we are going to talk about Davos next week. Is President Ramaphosa going to have a really solid case to present when he talks to investors?
No, for sure. I think the same case we had at the investment conference, a very solid case for South Africa's investment. Brand South Africa and Absa Bank, we're partnering on hosting an investment seminar, which is also part of an outcome, sharing outcomes of the investment conference and taking the message there that South Africa is not only open for business, but it's a hugely competitive market to establish yourself.
We've run out of time. Must I say to be continued?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for your time. There's so much to talk about here in the country. So the SABC is here, there, and everywhere. I have to go back to Peter now, as we are having stories in Zimbabwe and in Kenya as well. Well, there's so much. But thank you very much to Brand South Africa's General Manager for Research, Dr. Petrus de Kock, previewing the South African economy. Let's take a break. When we come back, a rolling coverage of news happening throughout the continent.